So, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. And second, and I feel really building on the points just been made, and I feel this is really important to say, there is no them and us. Now, I understand that primarily you are here to develop as healthcare professionals, but your mental health matters equally. In 2008 and 2009, I had major depressive episodes and made attempts to take my life. In 2010, I had a manic episode and was detained by the police under Section 136, and subsequently was detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act. I spent a total of 21 days in hospital, which is short by many standards, but definitely long enough to understand the impact the Mental Health Act can have on a person's life. I'm mixed race. My mum is white, my dad is black, but people often refer to me as being black. On my father's side, there are at least 3 of us who have been sectioned, including my own father. Serious mental illness has destroyed my relationship with my family, and the way in which mental health services operate has played a significant role in this. I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and complex PTSD, the result of psychological abuse by my parents. The past 10 years have included regular appointments with my psychiatrist, my CPN, courses of talking therapy, lifestyle changes, and regular medication including lithium, and I am still a user of mental health services. I've had numerous depressive episodes over the past few years, and I am currently coming out of a protracted depressive episode. I've worked for the past 5 years as a living experience consultant, using my experiences of mental illness and mental health services to develop various work streams. But I was appointed as Vice Chair for the Mental Health Act Review, not only because I have a mental illness and have been detained, but importantly because of my skills and competence. It is proof, if proof be needed, that people with living experience can and do work at the highest levels in our society. I'm just going to share with you the 3 significant periods when I was actively thinking about suicide and taking my own life. But in truth, since that time, suicidal thoughts are never far away. Now, when I consider those 3 periods, there were distinct differences, but also one constant. The reality of living made it difficult to live. So 2008, the summer. I would characterize this as total fear. I had no idea what was going on. It felt that suicide was inevitable, and I was only stopped by the intervention of a friend. Autumn 2009, huge guilt. And I attempted suicide whilst planning an accident to look like I'd died. And at that point, I didn't even consider that the attempt I made was a suicide attempt. All I knew was that I wanted to be free from my mind, just for a few weeks. Summer 2015, I had no fear at all. This was absolutely the scariest thing that I've ever experienced. I'd become okay with the idea of dying. I wasn't scared of it. And from the last 2 periods of suicidal episodes that I'd had, I now knew things that no person should ever know. I can never forget them. I didn't have to think about method. I already knew the top 3 ways that I would take my own life. And what I think this speaks to is the difference in approach that's needed for a person experiencing their first suicidal episode and for a person who has had multiple episodes. So, what helped me? Well, initially, it wasn't the health service. I had 2 awful experiences with GPs. Nor was it the voluntary service. I simply could not find support and had aged out of young people's support. I found one service but there was a 6 to 8 week wait to even speak to anyone. And I can assure you that was time that I did not have. The only thing that saved me was a friend who refused to let me die. When things got really bad, and after being on the phone supported me, on occasion she would call the Samaritans to ask them for advice on what she could do to keep me safe. So thank you to Samaritans for being there for her. So then we consider, well, what would have helped, especially that first time around? Without a shadow of a doubt, compassion. Consider this. My experience of going to seek help for the life-threatening thoughts in my head was not an easy one. I would walk the very short distance from where I lived to the surgery, and I would just stare at the door, and then I'd run home. This happened 3 or 4 times. I then managed to make it up the ramp outside and stood in the doorway of the surgery, and again ran home. Then I'd finally muster the strength to make an appointment, only to be met with the receptionist. The first time I didn't even make it all the way through making an appointment. A few days later, and I finally managed to make the appointment. I was slightly early, the GP slightly late. And I sat in the room sobbing my eyes out. I had never felt so bad in my entire life. And then I've got to go in and tell somebody pretty much immediately, because you've got 10 minutes, the most disturbing and destructive thoughts that I've ever experienced. The first GP I spoke to, and even though I told him that I was experiencing suicidal thoughts, and I asked for talking therapy, told me, well, you don't have a life-threatening condition. There's no talking therapy for you. 4 weeks later, at total rock bottom and in grave danger, I took my friend along. This time we saw a different GP. She told me that in my professional experience, if a person is serious about taking their own life, that they would have done it by now. I have to trust you with my life. The very least that you can do is to be fully present, is to treat the danger presented to my life with the respect and the urgency that it demands. And above all, show compassion. Now, for anyone sat here in the room today who has experienced suicidal thoughts or has been in a similar position, you know what it's like. For those of you who have not experienced suicidal thoughts, I pray that you never do. But I also pray that should you have those thoughts, that you are not made to feel the way those 2 GPs made me feel. Information. Both times when I saw these GPs, I was sent away with not so much as the number for Samaritans. Some information that can help to try to understand what you're going through would have been so helpful. Now, a printed leaflet might not seem like much, but consider this. The mere fact that it is in print means that other people have gone through this too. I was convinced that nobody had ever felt what I was going through. And that speaks to, and this was certainly true back in 2008, and probably today, the fact that no one was talking about suicide in the way that we really need to. And finally, a safety plan. Let me know what is going to happen. Let me know the things that I can do to keep me safe. Let me know the things that friends and family can do to keep me safe. Let me know what you as a health practitioner will do to keep me safe. A very simple tool, but again, it would have made all the difference in my life. Now, of course, we can go on further to talk about the specialised types of training that we want health staff to be equipped with. But for me, in terms of suicide prevention, let us absolutely get the basics right. Compassion, information, safety plan. remember this. A conversation about a person's suicidal thoughts is not simply a conversation. It can, and I would argue, should be a life-saving intervention. Thank you.